Greyhaven was a festering wound on Maine's coastline, a fishing town clinging to life amid splintered docks and clapboard houses sagging under decades of salt, wind, and relentless time, their roofs caved in like the ribs of a decaying beast. The air was thick with decay, a miasma of rotting fish, damp wood, and rusted metal mingling with the briny tang of the sea, a smell that clung to your clothes like a curse, seeping into your skin, your lungs, your dreams. The cliffs loomed above, black and jagged, their edges sharp as if the ocean had gnawed the earth to bone, casting shadows under a November sky bruised with storm clouds, heavy and low, threatening to smother the town in their embrace. Greyhaven felt alive yet dying, its pulse weak but stubborn, its streets whispering secrets in the creak of rusted signs swaying in the wind, the groan of weathered pilings bending under the tide's wake, and a faint, unplaceable hum that seemed to rise from the earth itself, a vibration that set your teeth on edge, like the echo of something ancient and hungry stirring beneath the waves. The town's history was steeped in shadow, whispered tales of shipwrecks that weren't accidents, of fishermen who vanished in calm seas, of a pact made long ago with something that lived in the deep, a deal sealed in silence and fear. I'd come for a story. My name's Elias Kane, a journalist with a knack for chasing trouble and a hunger for a scoop that could pull me out of the grind of small-time papers, where my byline was buried on page 12, forgotten by morning, and into the spotlight of a real career, a chance to prove I wasn't just another hack chasing deadlines. Greyhaven had lost 14 souls in 18 months, fishermen mostly, their boats found drifting empty, nets tangled like abandoned spiderwebs, or smashed to kindling on the rocks, hulls splintered as if crushed by an unseen force, their crews gone without a trace, but also a hiker who'd wandered too far into the fog, his backpack left on a trail that ended at a sheer drop, his journal filled with frantic sketches of eyes in the mist, glowing like lures, a bartender who never made it home after closing, his keys found in a puddle of seawater on a dry street, the pavement stained as if the sea had reached for him, and a teenage girl who'd climbed the cliffs on a dare, her sneakers found at the edge, laces still tied, as if she'd stepped into the void, her laughter silenced forever, her name now a warning whispered by her friends. The police called them accidents, rogue waves, drunken stumbles, suicides, but their reports felt too neat, too rehearsed, like a script written to bury the truth, to keep the town from unraveling. The ex-posts I'd scoured late at night, hunched over my laptop in a haze of coffee and cigarette smoke, painted a darker picture, whispers of strange sounds in the fog, voices that called from the water, luring people to their deaths, their words curling into your mind like hooks, promising answers, peace, oblivion, their cadence hypnotic, inescapable. I didn't buy into ghost stories or old sailors' tales spun over whiskey in smoky bars, but a mystery this raw, unsolved and dripping with dread, could put my name on the front page of every paper from Portland to Boston, maybe even New York, and silence the doubts that had haunted me since I'd left home at 18, running from my mother's grave and my father's absence, chasing a life that meant something. I rolled into town in early November, the sky heavy with the promise of a storm, clouds swollen and dark, pressing down like a lid on a coffin, the air so thick with the tang of seaweed and rust it coated my tongue, leaving a bitter taste I couldn't wash away. My motel room was a damp, creaking shell of a place, the wallpaper peeling like dead skin, curling at the edges to reveal mold-blackened plaster that smelled of rotten despair, the kind of place where hope went to die, where dreams drowned in the damp. The single window rattled in its frame, as if desperate to escape the town's oppressive silence, its glass streaked with salt and grime, distorting the world outside into a smeared nightmare, the cliffs looming like sentinels in the distance. I'd packed light, a digital recorder, its battery half drained from overuse, its red light a faint beacon in the dark, my only witness, a worn notebook, its pages warped from humidity, filled with half-formed theories, names of the vanished, and fragments of ex-posts that kept me up at night, a flashlight with a flickering bulb that cast jittery shadows on the walls, mocking my attempts to see clearly, and a thermos of coffee strong enough to wake the dead, its bitter heat my only comfort against the chill that seeped into my bones, a chill that wasn't just the cold but something deeper, something that lived in Greyhaven's silence. My plan was to dig into the disappearances, talk to locals, and peel back the layers of rumor to find the truth, to uncover what the town hid beneath its weathered facade. But Greyhaven was a ghost of itself, its streets empty save for the occasional gull screeching like a warning, its cry echoing off the cliffs, sharp and mournful, cutting through the fog like a blade. The locals moved like shadows, their faces weathered as driftwood, eyes avoiding mine as if I carried a curse, their hands stuffed in pockets or clutching cigarettes with trembling fingers, their lips sealed tighter than a clamshell, their silence a wall I couldn't breach. They knew something, I could feel it in the way their shoulders stiffened when I passed, in the way conversations died when I entered a room, in the way the air seemed to thicken with unspoken truths, heavy as the fog that never lifted. At night, the town held its breath, the only sound the distant crash of waves against the cliffs, the low moan of the wind through empty houses, and that faint, unplaceable hum, a vibration that lingered in the air like a bad dream, stirring memories of ex-posts about voices in the fog, of fishermen who never returned, of a town that had made a pact with something it couldn't name, a pact that demanded payment in lives. My first lead came at the Rusty Anchor, Greyhaven's only pub, a dim hole of a place that smelled of stale beer, fish oil, and the faint musk of despair, its walls stained yellow from years of smoke and neglect, scarred with initials carved by hands long gone, names that might belong to the vanished. The bar was half empty, its scarred wooden tables lit by flickering bulbs that buzzed like dying insects, casting shadows that danced like ghosts across the floor, their movements unsettling, almost deliberate. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the low murmur of conversations that stopped dead when I walked in, the door creaking like a coffin lid, the patrons' eyes flicking to me before returning to their drinks, their faces closed off, guarded, their hands tightening around glasses as if I'd brought the storm inside with me. I nursed a flat soda, its bubbles long gone, the glass sweating in my hand as I sat at the bar, ears pricked for any scrap of truth, my notebook hidden in my bag, my recorder a secret weight against my chest, my fingers itching to capture something real. Over the clink of glasses and the low drone of a jukebox playing a warped sea shanty, its notes distorted as if drowned, I caught a snippet about a fishing crew needing an extra hand. The Sea Crow had lost its deckhand 2 weeks prior, another disappearance, another accident, swallowed by the official reports, the man's name already fading from the town's memory, his absence just another hole in Greyhaven's fraying fabric, another offering to whatever haunted the waves. I saw my chance, a thread to pull, a way to get closer to the truth. If the answers were out there, they'd be on the water, where the sea couldn't hide its secrets, where the fog might part just long enough to reveal what the town refused to say, what it buried in its silence. The captain, Tom Hargrove, was a grizzly of a man, his beard like steel wool matted with salt and thyme, his eyes narrow and untrusting, like he'd seen too much to believe in strangers, his presence heavy as the cliffs themselves, a man who carried the weight of the sea in his bones. He sat hunched over a beer at the Rusty Anchor, his hands scarred and calloused, knuckles like knotted rope, fingers stained with tar and engine grease, a man carved from the same harsh elements as the sea he fought daily, his skin weathered like the hull of an old ship. "You ever fished?" he asked, his voice rough as gravel dragged over coral, each word heavy with skepticism, his gaze pinning me like a fish on a hook, searching for lies in my eyes, his fingers tightening around his glass as if ready to crush it. "No," I admitted, leaning back in the creaky bar stool, its wood groaning under my weight, the sound loud in the quiet bar, my heart pounding as I met his stare, my palms sweating despite the cold. "But I'm strong, and I learn fast." I fed him a half-truth about needing work to fund my travels, leaving out the recorder in my pocket, its weight a secret against my chest, and the notebook burning a hole in my bag, filled with names, dates, and fragments of ex-posts about voices in the fog, about shapes in the water that weren't fish. His gaze lingered, heavy with doubt, his eyes searching mine for cracks in my story, his fingers tightening around his glass, the knuckles widening, his jaw clenching as if he could taste my deception. The sea crow was short-handed, though, and desperation must have outweighed his suspicion. He grunted, downed his beer in one long swallow, the glass thumping on the bar like a gavel, and agreed to take me on for a week's trip, his voice grudging but final, his eyes warning me not to cross him, not to dig where I wasn't wanted. The crew was small, a mismatched lot bound by necessity and the sea's cold grip, each carrying their own burdens, their own ghosts, their own reasons for facing the water day after day. Mara, a wiry marine biologist who doubled as the boat's mechanic, had sharp eyes that missed nothing and a sharper tongue that cut through nonsense like a fillet knife, her words precise, her wit a shield against the world. Her hands were always smeared with grease, her nails chipped, her ponytail fraying from hours in the engine room, her face lined with a kind of exhaustion that came from fighting both machines and the sea, her eyes shadowed with grief. She'd come to Greyhaven to study its dying reefs, she'd said once, her voice clipped, but her eyes held a deeper story, one of loss, a brother, maybe, or a lover, taken by the same waters she studied, her obsession with the sea a penance she wouldn't admit, her notes filled with data that read like a requiem. Lily, her deckhand with a quick laugh that never reached her eyes, had a nervous habit of scanning the horizon, her fingers twitching like she expected something to leap from the sea, her knife always close at hand, its blade glinting in the lantern light, its handle worn from her constant grip. She'd grown up in Greyhaven, knew its tides like her own pulse, but her hands shook when she spoke of the cliffs, her voice dropping to a whisper, her eyes haunted by memories of friends lost to the fog, of nights when the hum was louder than the waves, of her sister's voice calling her name in dreams she couldn't escape. Nate, a lanky kid barely out of his teens, handled nets with quiet precision, his silence a wall I couldn't breach, his eyes haunted by something he wouldn't name, his thin frame hunched as if carrying a weight no one could see, his fingers trembling when he thought no one was watching, his lips moving as if reciting a prayer or a curse. They didn't ask about me, and I kept my questions vague, playing the drifter with a past not worth sharing, my own secrets tucked away like the recorder in my jacket, my own ghosts, my mother's death from cancer when I was 16, my father's abandonment a year later, the guilt of never saying goodbye, buried deep where they couldn't hurt me, or so I told myself. We were just bodies on a boat, bound by the promise of a paycheck and the sea's cold indifference, our footsteps echoing on the deck like a countdown to something inevitable, our shadows merging in the lantern light as if we were already one with the fog. We set out at dawn, the sea crow slicing through fog so dense it felt like wading through wet cotton, the air heavy with salt and the promise of rain, the horizon swallowed by grey, the world reduced to a claustrophobic bubble of mist and shadow, the deck slick underfoot. The water was black as oil, churning against the hull with a low, restless growl, each wave a warning that went ignored, the sea alive with a malice I couldn't name, its surface rippling as if something moved beneath it, watching, waiting. The cliffs faded into a grey smear as we headed for deeper waters, their jagged edges lingering in my mind like a half-remembered nightmare, their presence a reminder of the town we'd left behind, a town that felt like a trap we'd never truly escaped. The crew worked in silence, their movements practiced but edged with tension, like soldiers waiting for an ambush in a war they couldn't name, their eyes flicking to the water, to the fog, to each other, their hands steady but their faces tight with fear they wouldn't voice. I hauled lines and scrubbed decks, my hands raw from rope and salt, my fingers stinging with cuts that wouldn't heal, my recorder tucked in my jacket, its weight a reminder of why I was here, my notebook hidden in my bunk, its pages filling with questions no one would answer, with sketches of the cliffs, the sea, the shapes I thought I saw in the fog. Tom caught me scribbling notes once, his eyes narrowing to slits as he leaned over the rail, spitting into the sea, the act almost ritualistic, his face hard as the cliffs, his breath heavy with the scent of tobacco and regret. "You written a book or something?" he growled, his voice thick with suspicion, the wind carrying the scent of his sweat and tobacco, sharp and acrid, cutting through the salt air. I laughed it off, muttering about a travel journal, my heart pounding as I tucked the notebook away, my fingers trembling, but his stare burned into me, a warning to keep my nose clean, his hand lingering near the knife on his belt, its handle worn smooth from years of use, its blade glinting with a promise of violence, a promise I didn't doubt he'd keep. The first night, we anchored 10 miles out, the boat rocking gently in the swell, its creaks and groans a lullaby I couldn't trust, the deck slick with mist, the air heavy with the weight of the unseen, the fog pressing against us like a living thing. The fog hadn't lifted, blanketing the world in a suffocating haze, and the sea was unnaturally quiet, no gulls, no waves, just a stillness that pressed against my eardrums like a held breath, my pulse loud in the silence, my breath fogging in the cold, each exhale a reminder I was still alive. I was on deck, checking lines under the dim glow of a lantern, its light barely cutting through the mist, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own, twisting into shapes that weren't there, shapes that made my heart race, my skin crawl. That's when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong, a sound that made my blood run cold, my body freeze as if the sea itself had reached inside me. It started as a low hum, like a generator buried deep underwater, vibrating in my chest, rattling my bones, stirring a primal unease that made my stomach churn, my skin prickle with goosebumps. It grew, splintering into fragments, whispers, distorted cries, and garbled voices that might have been human but felt alien, like words twisted backward through a broken radio, each syllable a violation of the natural order, a mockery of sound itself, a language that wasn't meant for human ears. It came from the fog, directionless, wrapping around me like a net, cold and inescapable, its rhythm pulsing in time with my heartbeat, urging me to listen, to lean closer, to surrender to its call. My skin prickled, a cold sweat breaking out despite the November chill, my breath fogging in the air like a ghost, my hands trembling as I gripped the rail, my knuckles white, my nails digging into the wood. "You hear that?" I called to Lily, who was coiling rope nearby, her hands quick and nervous, her braid swinging like a pendulum, her face half hidden in the lantern's glow, her eyes wide with something like fear, something like recognition. She froze, her fingers tightening on the line, her face pale as moonlight, her breath hitching as if she'd heard it too but didn't want to admit it, her body tense as if braced for a blow. "Hear what?" she said, but her eyes darted to the water, betraying her lie, her knuckles widening as she gripped the rope, her voice barely above a whisper, her lips trembling. Mara emerged from the engine room, wiping grease from her hands, her head tilted like a dog catching a scent, her brow furrowed as if trying to solve a puzzle with no edges, her flashlight casting jagged beams into the fog, illuminating nothing but more mist, her face tight with a scientist's curiosity and a survivor's dread. The hum faded, then surged again, clearer now, a chorus of voices, men, women, maybe children, calling names, pleading, screaming, their words overlapping in a cacophony of despair that clawed at my mind, tearing at my sanity, each voice a thread in a tapestry of loss. I heard my own name, faint but sharp, like a needle piercing my brain, cutting through my thoughts, my mother's voice woven into the sound, calling me as she had when I was a child, before the cancer took her, before I failed her, her voice soft but insistent, promising forgiveness if I'd only come closer. "Elias, come closer." The words weren't just sound, they were a pull, a hook in my thoughts, urging me to the rail, my feet twitching as if drawn by a current, my body betraying my will, my mind screaming to resist, my hands shaking as I fought to stay grounded. "What the hell is that?" I asked, my voice shaking, my recorder trembling in my hand as I fumbled to capture the sound, my fingers numb with cold and fear, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst, my vision swimming with the effort to focus. Tom appeared from the wheelhouse, his face hard as stone, his boots heavy on the deck, his shadow looming in the lantern light, his eyes avoiding mine, fixed on the horizon where nothing was visible, his jaw clenched as if biting back words he couldn't say. Wind, he said, too quickly, his voice clipped, his hands gripping the railing until his knuckles turned white, his breath uneven, his body tense as if braced for an attack. Plays tricks out here. Ignore it. But his jaw was tight, his breath uneven, and Nate, who'd been silent all day, was staring at the water like it might swallow him whole, his hands trembling as he clutched a net, his lips moving silently as if praying, his face pale as bone, his eyes wide with a terror that mirrored my own. The sound stopped, leaving a silence heavier than the fog, pressing down like a weight on my chest, my pulse hammering in my ears, my mind racing with questions I was afraid to ask, with memories of ex-posts about voices that weren't human, about shapes that moved in the deep. We didn't talk about it, but the crew's mood shifted, the air between us thick with unspoken dread, our shadows merging in the lantern light as if we were already one with the fog, already claimed by the sea. Mara checked the engine twice, muttering about pressure gauges and fuel lines, her hands moving faster than necessary, her eyes flicking to the water with a scientist's curiosity and a survivor's fear, her breath shallow as if she expected the engine to betray us. Lily kept her knife out, slicing at invisible threats, her laugh replaced by a tight-lipped grimace, her fingers twitching as if expecting an attack, her eyes darting to the fog as if it might speak. Nate hummed to himself, a tuneless drone that grated on my nerves, his eyes distant, lost somewhere I couldn't follow, his face a mask of quiet terror, his hands trembling as he worked. I recorded it all, whispering into the mic, my hands unsteady, my mind racing with fragments of ex-posts, old myths, and the word siren creeping into my thoughts like an uninvited guest, a name that carried the weight of ancient fears, of sailors lost to the deep, of towns that paid for their survival with silence. The second night, it got worse. The hum returned, louder, fretting through the fog like a living pulse, vibrating in the deck beneath my feet, resonating in my bones like a tuning fork struck by fear, its rhythm invasive, unnatural, a violation of the world that made my skin crawl, my heart race. It wasn't just noise, it was alive, invasive, tugging at my thoughts, urging me to lean over the rail and peer into the black water, its surface glinting like a mirror hiding something monstrous, its depths whispering promises of truth and oblivion, of answers to questions I hadn't dared ask, of peace if I'd only surrender. I fought it, gripping the deck, my nails digging into the wood, splinters biting my skin, my breath shallow, my vision swimming with the effort to stay anchored, my mind screaming against the pull that felt like a hand around my throat. But Nate wasn't so lucky. He was at the stern, checking crab traps, his silhouette faint in the lantern light, his movements slow, almost dreamlike, as if he were already half gone, his hands moving as if guided by something else. The sound became a scream, sharp and jagged, like glass shattering in my skull, splitting my thoughts apart, making my vision blur with pain, my ears ring with a high-pitched whine that felt like it would never stop. I saw him freeze, his eyes wide, his mouth moving as if answering something only he could hear, his hands dropping the trap as if it burned, the metal clanging against the deck, the sound swallowed by the fog, his body trembling as if caught in a current. "Nate!" I shouted, my voice raw, my throat burning, my legs moving before I could think, but he stepped toward the edge, his movements jerky, like a marionette on frayed strings, his boots scuffing the deck, his eyes empty, his face blank as if his soul had already been claimed, his body no longer his own. Lily lunged for him, her knife glinting, her breath hitching in a sob, her braids swinging wildly, her face twisted with desperation, her voice breaking as she called his name, but the fog moved, shifted, like it was alive, curling around her like a predator, its tendrils thick and cold, wrapping around her like a shroud. Something rose from the water, a shape, tall and wrong, its outline blurred yet sharp in all the wrong ways, like a nightmare-given form, its presence a violation of the world, a tear in reality itself that made my stomach lurch, my mind reel. Long limbs, too many joints bending at angles that mocked biology, a head that was just a dark void, swallowing light, its edges pulsing with a sickly, bioluminescent glow that flickered like a dying star, its form shimmering as if it existed in two worlds at once. The sound poured from it, a wail that made my ears ring, my vision blur, my knees buckle under its weight, my mind fraying at the edges. Images are drowning, flashing behind my eyes, of shadows closing in, of a darkness that swallowed everything. Nate didn't scream. He just walked, straight off the deck, into the water, his body vanishing as if pulled by invisible hands, the sea closing over him with a soft, final gulp, leaving nothing but a ripple and a faint shimmer in the lantern's beam, the water lapping at the hull like a hungry tongue, the fog swallowing his absence as if he'd never been. Nate, Lily screamed, leaning over the rail, her voice raw with panic, her hands clawing at the air as if she could pull him back, her face twisted with grief and terror, her eyes wet with tears that caught the light, her body shaking with sobs. Tom yanked her back, his hands shaking, his face pale beneath his beard, his eyes wild with something like guilt, like he'd seen this before and done nothing, his fingers gripping her shoulders, his voice hoarse as he tried to steady her, to steady himself. "He's gone," he roared, his voice cracking like ice, his breath ragged, his body trembling with rage and fear, his eyes darting to the water as if expecting Nate to rise, to laugh, to prove it was a mistake. Mara was cursing, starting the engine, her hands fumbling with the controls, her usual precision lost to panic, her breath coming in short gasps, her flashlight falling to the deck with a clatter, its beam spinning wildly across the wood. But the sound was everywhere now, a chorus of voices, Nate's among them, begging, "Help, don't leave me." It wasn't him. It couldn't be. But it sounded so real I felt my legs twitch, wanting to follow, to dive into the black and find him, to answer the call that wasn't a call but a trap, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst, my mind screaming against the pull, my hands gripping the rail to keep from moving. We hauled anchor and headed for shore, the engine straining against the fog's oppressive weight, the boat lurching as if the sea itself resisted, waves slapping the hull like hands, the air thick with the smell of salt and something fouler, like decay, like death. The voices followed, weaving through the hum, calling our names, my mother, dead a decade, her voice soft and pleading, promising forgiveness for the fights we'd had, for the words I'd never said, for the guilt that still woke me at night, Lily's sister, lost years ago in a car crash, her laugh twisted into a sob that tore at my chest, her voice accusing me of living when she hadn't, Tom's brother, one of last spring's disappearances, his voice heavy with accusation, blaming Tom for leaving him to die, for choosing the sea over family. Mara's hands shook on the wheel, her scientific calm shattered, her lips moving in a whispered mantra, "It's not real, it's not real." But her eyes were wild, scanning the water, where shapes flickered in the fog, long limbs, glinting like wet bone, their movements jerky and wrong, their forms dissolving before I could focus, leaving only the afterimage of terror burned into my mind, my hands trembling as I clutched the rail, my breath shallow, my vision swimming with fear. We didn't make it to shore. The engine sputtered, then died with a choking groan, the silence that followed heavier than the fog, the boat rocking as if something pushed from below, the deck tilting under my feet, the air thick with the weight of something watching, waiting. Mara swore, diving below to check it, her boots echoing on the metal stairs, her flashlight beam cutting through the dark like a blade, her curses sharp and desperate, her voice breaking with fear. The hum became a screech, splitting the air, and I saw something climb onto the deck, a shape, taller than a man, its body slick and scaled, veins of shadow pulsing beneath its skin like rivers of ink, its form shimmering with a sickly iridescence that pulsed in time with the hum, its presence a wound in the world. Its arms ended in claws that dripped with seawater, its head a gaping maw with eyes glowing like lures in the deep sea, cold and predatory, their light pulling at my soul, promising answers if I'd only look closer, promising peace if I'd only let go. The sound poured from it, not a song but a weapon, tearing at my mind, shredding my thoughts, filling my head with images of drowning, of shadows closing in, of a darkness that never ended, of a sea that hungered for more than fish. Sirens, I realized, the word clawing into my brain as if planted there, ancient and wrong, a name that carried centuries of dread, of ships lost and sailors forgotten, of towns like Greyhaven that paid a price for living too close to the sea, their survival bought with silence, their fear about to never speak the truth. Lily screamed, swinging her knife, her movements frantic, her braids swinging wildly, her face twisted with defiance, her voice breaking as she cursed the thing, but it was faster, its claws lashing out, knocking her to the deck, her body crumpling as the siren dragged her into the water, the sea swallowing her with a hungry slurp, the waves lapping at the hull, the fog closing over her absence as if she'd never been. Tom fired his flare gun, the red light cutting through the fog, illuminating the horror for a split second, a flash of scales, claws, and glowing eyes, a nightmare frozen in crimson, before another shape lunged from the side, its claws slashing across his chest, sending him staggering, his body collapsing as the creature pulled him into the dark water, his shadow vanishing beneath the waves, the smell of salt and fear thick in the air, choking me. Mara stumbled up from below, her face smeared with grease and terror, her voice hoarse, her eyes wide with disbelief, her hands trembling as she clutched a wrench, her knuckles white, her breath ragged as she gasped for air. The engines sabotaged, something cut the lines. She shouted, her words barely audible over the screech, her flashlight beam shaking as she scanned the deck, her face pale as if she'd seen the truth and wished she hadn't. But the sirens were on us now, 3 of them, their bodies pulsing with veins of shadow, their mouths splitting into fractal voids that seemed to swallow reality itself, their forms flickering like a bad signal, their presence a wound in the world, a violation of everything I thought I knew, their eyes glowing with a hunger that wasn't human, their voices weaving a net around my mind, Lily, Nate, Tom, my mother, all twisted into something cruel, mocking, their words promising peace, promising answers, promising an end to the pain, to the guilt, to the fear. Elias, stay. The pull was physical, a hook in my chest, urging me to step into the water, to join them in the dark, to let the sea claim me, my legs trembling as I fought the urge to obey, my mind screaming against the call, my hands gripping the rail so hard. My fingers ached. I don't know how I fought it. Maybe it was the sharp smell of salt and fear, snapping me back to reality, grounding me in the horror of what I'd seen, the slick dampness of the deck under my boots, the reality of loss too raw to ignore. Maybe it was the weight of Lily's knife in my hand, still warm from her grip, its blade nicked but sharp, a tether to the world I was losing, a reminder of her fight, of her refusal to surrender. I grabbed the flare from Tom's body, my hands slick with seawater, the cold of it biting my skin, my stomach heaving, my vision swimming with tears and fear, my breath coming in gasps. I fired it at the nearest siren, the red light bursting like a scream, its scales blistering, a sound like metal grinding on bone tearing through the air as it writhed, its eyes dimming for a moment, its body recoiling in pain, its screech a wound in the night. I ran for the lifeboat, cutting the ropes with the knife, my arms shaking, my breath ragged, my hands slipping on the blade, the ropes fraying under my desperate cuts, my heart pounding as the sea churned around me. The sea was alive with shapes, dozens of them, their eyes glowing beneath the surface, their mouths open in a silent scream that echoed in my skull, their forms weaving through the water like eels made of shadow, their claws glinting in the faint lantern light, their bodies twisting in ways that defied nature, their hunger a palpable force. I rode, my arms burning, my lungs screaming, the hum chasing me through the fog, whispering my name, promising peace if I'd only stop, only look back, the oars slipping in my shaking hands, the sea pulling at the boat like a living thing, its waves clawing at the hull, its voice in my head, relentless, eternal. I washed up on a rocky beach, miles from Greyhaven, half dead, my clothes torn, my skin salt-crusted and bleeding, my hands blistered from the oars, my body aching as if I'd been dragged through hell, my mind fractured by what I'd seen, by what I'd survived. A Coast Guard patrol found me, shivering and babbling about a storm, a wreck, anything but the truth, because the truth was too big, too impossible, too monstrous to speak, too heavy to carry, a weight that would crush anyone who heard it. They didn't believe me, but they didn't push, their eyes flicking to the sea like they'd heard the stories too, their radios crackling with static that sounded too much like the hum, their faces pale in the dawn light, their hands unsteady as they helped me to my feet, their voices soft as if afraid to wake something sleeping in the waves. The sea crow was never found, no bodies, no wreckage, just another ghost story to haunt the coast, whispered in bars and forgotten by morning, the town turning its back on the truth as if it could erase the lives it had lost to the sea. I'm in a city now, far from the sea, where the air smells of asphalt and exhaust instead of salt, where the noise of traffic drowns out the silence, where the world feels solid, grounded, safe. But the hum follows, faint but relentless, buried in the static of my radio, the drone of traffic, the wind rattling my windows at night, its rhythm matching my pulse, a constant reminder of what I escaped, of what I can't unsee, of what still haunts me. I see their eyes in dark reflections, in the glint of street lights on wet pavement, their claws in the shadows of alleys, their forms flickering at the edge of my vision, always just out of reach, always waiting, their patience a promise of inevitability. I don't sleep. When I close my eyes, I see Lily's desperate fight, her body vanishing into the waves, Tom's collapse, his shadow swallowed by the dark, Nate's empty stare as he walked into the water, his body claimed by the deep, his silence louder than any scream. I hear their voices, not just in the hum but in my dreams, calling me back to the sea, their words sharp as hooks, promising rest if I'll only return, their whispers threading through my thoughts like a virus, eating away at my sanity, my will, my hope. I keep Lily's knife on my bedside table, its blade a reminder that I fought, that I survived, but it's not enough to silence the hum, to stop the dreams, to keep the sea from calling. Greyhaven's gone quiet, according to X. The town's dying, the docks empty, the houses boarded up, their windows like blind eyes staring at nothing, the streets silent save for the wind that carries the faint echo of the hum, a sound no one acknowledges but everyone hears. No one mentions the sound, but I know they're out there, waiting in the fog, their voices carried on the tide, patient and eternal, their hunger never sated, their eyes glowing in the dark, their claws poised to claim the next soul foolish enough to listen. If you're ever on the coast and hear a hum that doesn't belong, don't listen. Don't look. Run, because once they know your name, they'll never stop calling, and the sea never forgets its debts.